Hello and welcome to the New Payments Platform Australia and ABSIA webinar. My name's Marnie Ryan. I'm a Senior Manager in the Engagement team at MPP. Today we're going to be talking about the MPP, an overview of what the platform looks like, and also what's next for the MPP. What are we looking at, what development are we doing, and what standards are we releasing? We've also received some questions from the ABSIA members, and we will be going through a Q&A discussion later on. I'll be joined by a colleague of mine, Shannon Lewis, to have that discussion. So the MPP has a number of key capabilities. One of those is the real-time movement of money from account to account with real-time settlement through the Reserve Bank of Australia. It also involves the use of a PayID, which provides simpler addressing and the ability to be able to provide a mobile number as an example rather than your BSB and account number. MPP provides data-rich capability with the ability for data to be carried with the payment. So rather than just a simple 18-character remittance, it's more extensive and provides greater straight-through processing. It's always available, 24/7, 365 days a year. So looking a little bit more technical at how MPP works, it's a distributed switch of individual payment access gateways, or PAGs as we call them, hosted by each of the financial institutions who have chosen to connect directly to the MPP. Those gateways route and exchange financial messages between them, all using the MPP ISO 20022 message standard. The payment messages are cleared between the participating financial institutions and then settled by the RBA's FSS, or Fast Settlement Service. Let's look a little more closely at PayID. So MPP's addressing service is called the PayID, or utilises the PayID. It enables payments to be directed to an account using an easy-to-remember alias, what we call the PayID. That is then linked to an underlying bank account. PayIDs can be easily moved or ported from one bank account to another with all of the associated payments that are linked to that PayID. So there's no more need to keep up-to-date bank account details with all of the different parties that you're dealing with. There's currently 4 alias types that are supported: phone number, email, ABN, and an organisation identifier. The MPP also supports still payments that are made to the BSB and account number as well. So although PayID is out there and in use, you can still actually make payments using MPP to the BSB and account number that you provide. Using PayID does also give you extra ability to confirm who the intended payee recipient is of the payment that you're about to make. So there's that added benefit of reassurance that the PayID can give you. So where are we up to with MPP at the moment? So just over a year after launching, we've seen that there are 52 million accounts that can make and receive MPP payments. There's 2.5 million registered PayIDs that are out there. So these figures are at February 11th, which is just a year after we launched. And we've now seen that PayID registrations increase up to 2.7 million. So it's been great growth. We've also seen over 90 million transactions sent across the platform, which is an extraordinary number in a short amount of time. Who's involved in MPP? So we've got 75 plus financial institutions and other institutions that are actually involved in MPP, and these are growing all the time. We have a number who are waiting to join MPP, and we'll continue to see that growth as we get to ubiquity across the platform. One of the real use cases that we've seen recently of MPP and the actual value that it can bring to the economic infrastructure in Australia is the use of MPP by Centrelink to deploy real-time emergency payments. Recently, the floods in Townsville and also the fires in Tasmania saw the DHS and Centrelink actually make payments to those affected by the disasters. And we also see Centrelink sending over $5 million across the MPP for emergency assistance payments, including domestic and family violence, consistently. So what are we looking at next? Our focus for MPP is to develop capability on our platform. Over the last year, we have been slowly building in terms of volume, but what we're doing now is trying to enhance that. So we have published an API framework and an API sandbox. We're developing message usage guidelines, which we'll talk about all of these in a minute, and we're also presenting some QR code standards. MPP's acknowledged that APIs are really important in the infrastructure of all digital platforms at the moment and are critical to the way businesses interact. We plan on using these to expand our ecosystem to third parties and enabling them to interact with MPP. We have focused over the last couple of months on establishing a standard and interoperability framework with the launch of the API framework. We are now currently about to, well, in the next month or so, launch version 2 of the API framework, which will add additional functionality to that. All of these are then published so that we can give fintechs and other corporates, merchants, the opportunity to start interacting with MPP. As part of this, we've also launched an API sandbox. It's intended to allow those third parties the ability to learn more about MPP and actually test different scenarios. It's obviously a secure cloud-based facility. The beta version contains a number of the scenarios and some static scenarios that allow you to test. But it'll evolve over time and we'll actually use some of the standards that we're publishing later. If you'd like to register for access to the MPP Sandbox, you can visit our website for the registration form if you'd like to submit that. One of the key focuses of MPP, of the team at the moment, is to look at the development of an MPP-specific ISO 20022 message usage guideline for 3 particular areas: payroll, PAYGW, so the tax, and superannuation payments. We see the benefit of MPP and specifically the ISO 20022 message structure to allow additional information. Our aim is to ensure that there is a uniform approach for data and consistent end-to-end transmission of that data from payer to payee. We are at the moment defining specific message elements that will be included for these different types of payments, and we will use particular types of category codes which will identify the transaction type that's being used. Our current focus is really just looking at the payments, but in longer term we're looking to really enhance the data that's sent with the payments so that both the payer and payee can enhance their straight-through processing. We're also aligning this work with some of the API framework that will be published, and so you'll be able to see this develop over time. One of the really great examples of MPP that we see is the making of payroll payments on MPP, and that's one of the reasons why we've actually looked at that as one of the message usage standards. In this scenario here, we see that there's a processing of a payroll by a payroll provider, a software provider, who submits that to their financial institution. The bank looks up the employee's PayID so that they can direct their salary payments to them, and then they send that in real time with additional information that can be transferred. They can also potentially put superannuation disbursements and other third-party payments through as well. The employees receive their payroll information and their payslip data potentially along with that. The ATO and super funds can also receive their payments and their employee contributions in real time. It's a real value that we can really see for payroll, especially where the data is involved. One of the other areas that we've been looking at, and we are looking to develop a lot more, is the QR code standard for MPP payments. It's based on the EMV code QR specifications for merchant-presented QR codes, And what we'll be doing is defining a number of mandatory elements required to ensure the consistency for MPP payments. This will be for both static and dynamic QR codes, and the use cases for these will look to be either for bill payments, invoices, e-commerce, and potentially at point-of-sale terminals. So what's the MPP vision? MPP is really aiming to be a world-class payments infrastructure to enable commerce and the Australian digital economy. We want to achieve ubiquitous reach, which means that every account in Australia is able to send and receive MPP payments. We want to deliver a capability that supports innovation. It needs to be reusable, it needs to extend across all types of payments, from person to person, business to business. We want to set a standard or data standards message usage to support processing and efficiency so that we can get straight through processing, and that's from small businesses to larger businesses right through to government. We would like to support different payment types so that we can maximise the volume and the utility of the platform. We would like to support the ability for third parties to be able to initiate payments, and that'll be based on the message usage guidelines that we submit, and also obviously ensuring that it's secure. Our vision is also to provide fair and open access to the platform to ensure wide and diverse participation in the MPP from all sectors in the economy. As part of this process, we have actually asked for some questions, and I'm now joined by my colleague Shannon Lewis to go through some of the questions that we received from the ABSIA members. Hi Shannon. Hi Marnie. So, some of the questions that have come in, one was around the PayID and what sort of usage and stats that we are seeing at the moment for that usage.
Well, as you said, there's 2.7 million PayIDs now registered, and we're seeing that grow weekly and expect to continue to see that grow with more financial institutions offering MPP capability to their customers.
Yeah. What do you think is the most popular PayID being used at the moment?
I think it's mobile phone number, because there's the initial focus on retail payments.
Yeah.
But we can't forget there's 3 other PayID types that can be used, and as I said, with more FIs coming on board and offering their MPP capability to their customers, then we'll see that grow as well.
Another question that we got through was, there appears to be some variability on the maximum amount that you can transfer on a daily limit, essentially, by the different financial institutions. What is that? Why do you think that question's been asked?
Well, I'll just firstly say that MPP hasn't made any caps or put any kind of rules around the value limits for a payment. And we know that our biggest payment was $17 million, which is quite large, but it's the rules that individual financial institutions have. So they have different rules for different types of accounts and different channels, and it's up to them to determine what sort of payments and the amount limits, the value limits that they want to set for those payments. As the MPP take-up increases, as their products mature, the banks will look at that again probably and make adjustments. But if people want to know what the limit is for their particular institution, then they should talk to the institution. We certainly don't have a limit.
One of the other questions that's come in is, how are the IBANs or bank account numbers being used for overseas transactions?
Right, interesting. At the moment, MPP is handling domestic payments only. In the very near future, we will be implementing new business services, which will allow for the domestic leg of an international payment.
For an incoming one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
For an incoming payment. And also we've been part of the SWIFT GPI pilot, so we expect that in the future international payments will definitely be on the radar.
Yeah, it'll start growing.
Yeah.
And with all of the other implementations around the globe for real-time payments, you start to see that grow. Yeah. Interesting one, because it's been one of our focus areas, something that we've been looking at. Are superannuation payments being processed on the MPP?
They are, Marnie. But between participants who agree to the way that they would use MPP to process those payments, we have to be cognizant of the fact that currently the superstream regulations don't include specifications for MPP, but we're working closely with the ATO to ensure that we can provide them with the correct specification for that. And also we've been working with the super industry to make sure that we've got the right sort of data. We know that we need, importantly, a PRN.
Yes, the key piece.
The key piece of data in our payments, and for that to be handled in the correct way.
Yeah.
So we're definitely looking at doing that.
And we are engaging with all of those parties, so it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if we look at the message usage standards, we've talked about that we're focusing on superannuation, payroll and PAYGW to start off with, because we can see the value that they actually bring. What's next? What do you think that you and I specifically will be looking at over the next, I suppose, couple of months?
Well, I suppose the areas of opportunity are things like e-invoicing, insurance, payments associated with securities. E-invoicing, especially given that there's the Trans-Tasman initiative at the moment. So as we've looked to support other industries like super to help them make payments and reconcile their payments with their information, we'd also look to support any government initiatives in that space as well. Yeah. So I think that e-invoicing certainly, and then insurance and securities.
And with those, we're working with a number of the bodies as well. So in insurance, we're ensuring that any conversations we have are all based on the standards that are out there and being used by those industries. So for us, that's reassuring. So one other question is that, and I suppose it's relevant for the ABSIA members, is that a lot of software, or most software providers, currently produce an ABA file, which they're sending to their bank for processing. What do I need to do to get onto MPP?
So I would encourage software providers and service providers to talk with their banking partners and to talk with us.
Yeah.
So starting that conversation to determine if you would incorporate MPP messages into your products and services, or if your bank would translate your current messages into MPP messages, or if in fact there's an alternate solution for you. At the moment, I think it's important to start that conversation to consider if moving over to the MPP messages and incorporating them into your own products is going to give you a long-term opportunity. But start the conversation with your banking partner.
And it's about really understanding what the value can be in having a real-time response as well, isn't it? It's about having those information in the message, and also the value of what you'll get out of MPP in terms of not just from a payment perspective, but from a data reconciliation point. And I suppose that's one of the reasons for the webinar, and also one of the reasons why we've been doing the market consultation as well. And also one of the reasons why we actually want to ensure that we're talking to industry and to partners, vendors, etc., to try and understand what their requirements are as we develop those standards.
Yes, keep that engagement.
To really keep that conversation happening so that we can develop the processes and roadmaps, and that they can then incorporate MPP into that roadmap. I suppose that's a good point to end on, and also to reach out to anyone who's watching the webinar to say that if you are involved or interested in making a recommendation to MPP, or want to get in touch with us, even if you have looked on our website and seen that our market consultation has closed, we'd still be interested in hearing from you. We really want to understand what inputs the industry can give to us. So please feel free to reach out to us at our inbox at info@nppa.com.au. So thank you for your time. Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Annie.
And we'll thank you too.